पाकिस्तान और चाइना एक हो। हमारी सरकार ने फॉरेन पॉलिसी को मिसहैंडल कर दिया है।
सीखिए कि जिम्मेदार विपक्ष की भूमिका किस ढंग से निभाई जाती है।
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of the Super Saturday Debate. I'm Anand Arsiman, ladies and gentlemen. When the opposition of the day rakes up issues, especially with regards to border, with regards to those undefined territories with a pesky neighbor, and also talks up the two-front war-like situation, one needs to take a step back and understand whether this is a creation of the last 3 or 4 years, or is this a legacy issue that's been built over the last 75 odd years, ladies and gentlemen. When leaders and MPs of Parliament sit on a dais of their party and platform and say that if the government of the day admits to the mistakes that it has made, we will back them wholly, then will they practice what they preach? Will they step up and say that these are the mistakes from not a blade of grass grows there when Ladakh or a huge part of Aksai Chin was given away, when the seat at the UN Security Council was given away, when ordnance factories were shut down. From then onwards, the attitude that was developed, why only 1962 was remembered but 67, 86, etc. were forgotten. These legacy issues remain, ladies and gentlemen. When the government of the day turns to the opposition and say, be responsible, then is it also not onus on the government to also act with responsibility with laying the facts threadbare? But here is what happens when it comes to border issues. You cannot be flippant. You cannot brush under the carpet the doings or the actions of the past, because that's what manifests today, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just do a quick recap of what Mr. Rahul Gandhi has said in the recent past when he's raked up the issue of China. 2020, government fast asleep, price paid by our martyred Jawans. When the enemy attacks and you turn around, and this was around Galwan, ladies and gentlemen. Galwan, the bloody nose that the PLA got, shocked them. But that was forgotten and brushed aside. So whose narrative is being played up here, and what kind of talk is being done? Is the opposition talking Bharat's language, or is the opposition talking, or Mr. Rahul Gandhi actually talking a pro-China or a Chinese PSYOP-driven language, PLA PSYOP-driven language? Think about this. When you see the utterances, they've accused Prime Minister Modi of surrendering to China. A leader who stood there in Ladakh and said, Veer Bhogya Vasundhara, and we captured peaks which the PLA never thought we would ever, and these utterances are made. So responsibility is commitment towards Bharat, ladies and gentlemen, political fight aside. But think about this, 2020 demands explanation from the PM on Chinese intrusions. We need to remember our history when such utterances are made, ladies and gentlemen. Claims ignoring warnings on China will cost India dearly. What warnings on China? The entire RCEP deal was signed at a time that the Chinese had driven right up to the Y junction in Demchok. The agreement of partnership and cooperation and the donation that is being alleged that was made to the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation of 50 lakh rupees happened at a time. And the party-to-party agreement between the CCP and the Congress party happened in 2008, when again the Chinese had moved in and damaged the Zorawar fort and created their own posts. History we must remember, ladies and gentlemen. Again, China plus Pak plus Mr. 56 inch is increasing Chinese occupancy. Comes from a person under UPA 1 and UPA 2. Mr. Shyam Saran's 2012 report said more than 640 square kilometers had already been salami sliced in the last 12 years, and whose defense minister turned around and said, we have done nothing till now. We've started doing now because wahan sadak nahi banegi to Chini andar nahi aa payenge. Look at the mentality. On record, Mr. A.K. Antony in 2013. Now, this is what has been said. Now, 2021, truth about Chinese occupation should be admitted now. Further was said, 2022, our soldiers are getting thrashed by the Chinese. Would you use such a language? And when you use such a language, who are you demeaning? The allegation made by the Congress is whenever we question the government, we had said that we are lampooning the army. But these utterances have come from leaders of the Congress party. China readying for a full-fledged war, our government's sleeping. Many questions arise, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive straight into the debate. Go across to our guests. We have Tushar Gupta, senior editor of Swarajya with us. Kapil Madan, lawyer and political analyst with us. George Kurian, political strategist with us. And we have Charu Pragya, spokesperson of the BJP. Namaste, Jai Hind, and also advance greetings for a happy 2023 to all of you who are there on this debate, and also to you and your loved ones. And more importantly, let it be a fantastic year for Bharat. But let me ask right at the top, Charu Pragya, when a leader repeatedly turns around and asks you, why haven't you had, and a party turns around and asks you, why haven't you debated the Tawang incursion in Parliament? Why are you being evasive about the actual details of what's happening along the line of actual control? Are they making a fair point or not?
Anand, let me go back to a little bit of history here. So way back in 2006, 2008, 2009, 2012 even, whenever the Chinese have come too close to the Indian border, at times even crossed it, this issue was raised in Parliament by the opposition, which happened to be my party at that point of time. And what was said by the Prime Minister then, Dr. Manmohan Singh ji said that these issues are very sensitive. A statement will be given by the Raksha Mantri, but this cannot be debated on the floor of the House. You have to understand certain issues are of sensitivity, and it is our armies which are handling it. Questioning it again and again, wanting to debate it in a way, is actually questioning the valor of the Indian army. I think this needs to be told upfront, and every single political party in this country needs to uphold the stand of India first, which is not the case that Congress follows at any given point of time. So whenever there's a skirmish, whenever there's a problem, whenever there's a discussion, INC, Congress, is found to be standing on the other side of the fence, on the wrong side of the border, whether it is with the Chinese or it is with the Pakistanis. This is the same political party, जिनकी पुरानी गलतियों की वजह से आज भी debates and discussions and conversations are happening about the border issue. So if the previous leaders of Congress had not acted the way that they did, 640 square kilometers of precious Indian land would not be under Chinese control today. That being said, there are border talks between the top officials in the army on the Chinese and the Indian side. And when the Congress and Rahul Gandhi especially makes irresponsible statements questioning our army, questioning the stand of the Indian government, I think one, it is unfair, and two, what is he trying to do? Is he crying out for blood? Is he crying out for war? Because he needs to understand that whatever is happening along the Indian border, when the Raksha Mantri says not 1 inch of Indian land has been given to the Chinese, he needs to believe that, because that is a confirmed statement.
No, but it's the opposition's job to put the government. It's the opposition. It's the opposition's job to question the government. But somewhere in questioning the government, are you also batting for the enemy, George Kurian? That's where the issue is. The issue is to speak the language of the enemy, or to try and speak a language which then perhaps allows the enemy, gives the enemy a lot of cover fire and to play up this psyops. Why should somebody with the perhaps the experience of Mr. Rahul Gandhi stand there and say our Jawans are thrashed? It hurts, sir, for anybody to use that. No Bharatiya would use that kind of language, because you'd play up into the hands of the opposition. But the point that was made today at the review press conference by Rahul Gandhi is that let's own up. If you own up, we will back you. So does this door swing both ways of owning up?
Well, Anand, let me make it very clear to your audience that the opposition, especially the Congress party, is not playing into the hands of anyone, to make it very clear. And it is not that we are actually talking as a progressive party in the interest of the national, that is India. And we strongly foresee that, Pakistan and Chinese bilateral relations, which are evolving with regards to their strategic allies, technical and military, at military level, to be very precise. So that is something which need to be.
When did that start, sir? You're a wise man. You know you know Bharat's political history. You please tell me, when did the aligning of China and Pakistan start?
Well, it is there in public domain for everyone to see. And what I'm trying to say is
So I'm asking. So
when Pakistan and
it's
China,
about owning up. No, sir, it's not. It's about owning up. So let me ask you. Please tell our viewers, when did the aligning of Pakistan and China start?
when the aligning of Pakistan and China started, it's there on Wikipedia as well. So
I don't need to even look at Wikipedia. You should. You are. Like I said, you are a wise man yourself. You understand. Your heart beats for Bharat like mine does. Let me ask you: when did the alignment of Pakistan and China start strategically? The concern that's been raised by Mr. Rahul Gandhi today. When did it start? Did it start yesterday, day before, 2 years back, 4 years back, 6 years back, or 35, 40 years back?
Well, if you ask me a straightforward question, when did it start? I don't have the exact date to be very fair to you on this at this point in time. But what we are as concerned as you are and the whole of India is, what we are trying to say is that the government at the center take the ownership and come fair
Sir,
to the opposition as well.
No,
So,
sir,
no,
this is
things
where
can
the
resolve.
problem is, sir. This is where the problem is. When you pick up an issue, I do not want to interrupt you, but this is where the problem is. When you try and brush off the errors of the past, which are sitting on our heads like millstones, hanging around our necks as millstones and sitting on our shoulders like monkeys, with a sword hanging over our head, then it's very, 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 very irresponsible, sir. Please go back and see, when is it that Pakistan gave away part of Gilgit-Baltistan, and the Pakistanis along with the Chinese tried to crowd around and try to conquer Aksai Chin and sit on top of Aksai Chin?
Anand, there are mistakes made in the past, so that doesn't take away.
No,
BJP
sir.
Cannot.
Those mistakes.
BJP today is in power with full majority. What is the advantage of BJP
But
coming to power with full
I'm
majority?
asking you, how is it a responsible statement, George Kurianji, from somebody who's an MP for more than 3 terms to come out and say that there is a two-front war between China and Pakistan, as if you didn't know when it was happening in 2004, it was happening in the 90s, it was happening in the 80s, sir? Are you trying to say that this is a creation of this is a recent creation? How is that responsible as a Bharatiya Nagrik, sir?
See, Anand, we have to understand India is a democratic country, and today BJP is in power with full majority. They have all the resources and they have the numbers with them, so they are free to use the resources the way they actually want to strategize things. That wasn't the case when UPA was in power. It was an alliance partnership.
Sir, are you trying to say there were
conscious.
political parties who were part of a coalition government which did not want Bharat to be secure, which did not want Bharat to be strong, which did not want enemies to be pushed back?
There were restrictions at that point in time, so which is not the case with BJP today. They are in full majority and they can very well go ahead and take decisions on their own.
Sir, in the 70s and the 80s, the Congress had a ramrod straight up majority and they could bulldoze through. If you could bulldoze through emergency, you could bulldoze through altering the preamble of our constitution and get away with it. Are you trying to say you couldn't bulldoze through securing of our borders and redrawing the lines? And at that time, the strategists who are still there, who political opinion makers who were there into the 80s, into the 90s, into the 2000s, did not realize that we are facing a two-front war. China made a stated objective of 100 years in 1949. Are we still blind to it? And yet we gave them Aksai Chin, saying not a blade of grass grows there. Is history forgotten that another Congress leader took off his cap and he told the Prime Minister that mere sar pe bhi kuch nahi ugta, isko bhi Chiniyon ko de doge? Sir, that's also there on Wikipedia if that's what you refer to. My point is, sir, in the interest of the country, can you forget what has been done? If it is a time to own up, let everybody own up. Tushar Gupta and Kapil Madan come in one by one. Tushar Gupta, and then I'll come to you, Georgie. One sec. Charupagya coming.
Anand, you made a very important point in your introduction that Rahul Gandhi's language is also the language of the Chinese psyops. They both share an uncanny similarity, and that is why I would like to bring in an economics angle to it, because economic today is also linked very closely to foreign policy. Now, we remember A.K. Antony's statement in 2013 on the floor of the parliament, where he said we did not have developed border regions with respect to China because that would have resulted in a conflict. I say let's not even go to 1962. Let's not get into the faults of Nehru or the generations thereafter. Let's compare 2004 to 2014 and let's compare it with 2014 to 2022. Look at the amount that has been done, amount of work that has been done in terms of infrastructure on the borders. And yet the Congress comes out and say, what has this government done? Look at what happened during the farmers' protest. And for some reason, Rahul Gandhi, for the longest time, attacks two leading industrialists of India, Adani and Adani. That is again the language of Chinese psyops. So at the end of the day, we need to ask, why is Rahul Gandhi always attacking the Indian industrialists, and especially one of those industrialists who's created an indigenous 5G system? The same 5G system the Chinese wanted to get a backdoor footing in through Huawei in India, which India does ban. And number three, Anand, very important point. You know, we keep talking about the India's manufacturing prowess, and today when India is attracting companies from China to India, like Apple is now manufacturing in India at a greater level, so are other factories and other companies. There is one economist, a self-proclaimed economist who's now turned into a politician and who walks with Rahul Gandhi during the Bharat Jodo Yatra and says, why is India focused on manufacturing? If you look closely, the Congress has not just the foreign policy goals, but even the economic goals are speaking the language of Chinese psyops. If India takes one step forward, the Congress wants India to take two steps backwards. That is what worries me, that they are not on India or the government of the day when it comes to foreign policy. Politics, they're a hopeless case. But even on economics, they are not backing the government of the day, be it Huawei, be it manufacturing, be it the border road infrastructure. So my question, Anand, at the end of the day is, what was the information in that memorandum that was signed in 2008 between the Congress and the CCP that makes Rahul Gandhi speak languages like this? What is really going on?
Now, George Korean wants to respond. My simple question is that agreement still on, or has Congress rescinded that because Mr. Rahul Gandhi has openly called China an adversary today? Yes, George.
For every statement that Rahul makes, you need not come up with that 2008 agreement that they had done for social engineering. So this is something one should be history now. Let's grow up.
But has the Congress party rescinded that agreement? Is that agreement still on, or has it been rescinded, sir? That's one question. Secondly, George, you just said it has been done for social engineering. What kind of social engineering was the CCP wanting to do along with the Congress party in Bharat, sir?
Exactly.
A nation.
What
hurts me, sir, is, and it's also there in Wikipedia, although I do not swear by it since you talked about it, it's also there in 2008. It was the very year when in August this happened. It was the very year or in the build up to it that the Chinese had come all the way up to the Y junction even that year. That was the year when the Zorawar fort was demolished. Zorawar Singh is an important part of Bharat's history. He was the one who forced the Treaty of Chushul 1842, the last drawn recognized map between India and Chinese, between Bharat and Chinese. And that map we have not been able to go back to. He was the man who forced it at that time, along with the Dogras who went ahead and avenged his death. To mark his death, that fort was built there. That was destroyed by the PLA. The same year when the Congress signed an agreement with the CCP sitting in Beijing. No, so I'm saying India's interests. And this was the person. He was the same person who sat there, sir. Who sat there 14 years ago signing that agreement. So does it not become too rich coming from somebody who's not ready to own up that they have also goofed up, and the big blunders that we are facing as a nation is because of the policies of the past? Kapil Madan.
Anand, I would, start this debate by enlightening all the viewers, about what, my friend Charu Pragya said here. Now, Charu Pragya made a very categorical statement here that questioning the government is akin to questioning the army. Now, I would like to remind Charu Pragya here, in 2013, and I will give you the exact date. On May 13, 2013.
No. Charu Pragya, you rebut after Kapil Madan completes his point. He's not spoken for 15 minutes. Let him complete. Yeah.
Now, I would just, like to remind Charu Pragya about a statement made by Mr. Narendra Modi on 13th of May 2013, wherein he specifically made a statement and said that why are Indian forces withdrawing? Why did we retreat? Another tweet made by Mr. Modi, and he used no, unequivocal words, and he used the term and said our army is weak. Now, if you want to draw, BJP now wants to take a moral high ground here And BJP is an example of, they don't practice, what they, actually preach. Now, questioning the government is not questioning the army. Now, while we want to make, this issue as Congress versus the BJP, we are forgetting the larger and the more important issue, whether there is any threat by the Chinese or not. The fact remains, we are seeing, we saw, what happened in Doklam, we saw what happened in Galwan, we now saw what happened in Arunachal. The fact remains, it is an admitted fact that the Chinese are, up to, and they are pursuing their sinister design. And what is the opposition asking? The opposition is
but
saying...
this sinister design, Kapil Madan, one minute. You have a valid point where you say that questioning the government is not equal to questioning the army. But when the language used is that our Jawans were thrashed, then the point is then you don't use that answer. You don't use that kind of language. But you went back and said that in the past, the current Prime Minister, who was then Chief Minister of Gujarat, raised a point where he said, why are the troops pulling back and why is the army weak? So, Charu Pragya, respond to that.
Yeah. So, Anand, let me remind Kapil Madan the statement which was made by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh Ji on the 28th of April 2013. When questioned about China, he said, ये छोटी सी बात है, it cannot be discussed in parliament. That is his exact language, Kapil. छोटी सी बात बोला गया था. Secondly, like I reminded you in the beginning, this issue wouldn't have been there if after the last war with China, so much of our land wouldn't have been gifted to the Chinese. The third point is, and you have to remember this, the language of Rahul Gandhi ji leaves a lot to be desired, and every single time, all the instances you are mentioning, whether it is Doklam or the most recent one, you cannot be found standing on the other side of the border.
But the fact of the matter is, Charu Pragya, the inability of the Congress over the last 6 decades with China has also not translated into the ability of the BJP over the last 8 years with respect to China. I'll tell you why. Because the 1990s border protocol, which the Chinese have reneged upon, is still pending. The Chinese have not yet been brought to define the line, define the border. The border still remains ambiguous. The third point is that if the Chinese will only understand might and they will understand muscle, so if they attempt to salami slice, why haven't we salami sliced them back? Why haven't we gone ahead and pushed them into pickets and said that not only will we hit you back, but we will also go ahead and not. Why did we give up the Northern Heights? Why did we come back? Why did we disengage and why did he climb down back and give up those hills? Because those tops were important for us. In the talk for disengagement, why did we hang back if the Chinese have not hung back and gone back to that Treaty of Chushul of 1842 and they don't recognize the line of actual control? Can you tell me the land that's been salami sliced over the years, will the PLA ever give that back unless we take it back forcibly?
See, absolutely they will, Anand, because there are rounds of talks which are underway even while we debate. And these rounds of talks have to be complemented with restraint on both sides. So when we talk of border skirmishes, were bullets fired? No, we know how these fights happened. And the Indian side pushed the Chinese side back. So for anybody, any political party in the opposition India today especially, saying that why aren't you firing bullets and drawing blood, let me tell them that war is going to be problematic for both the sides. We are trying to resolve this.
It is agreed. No, there is also an information bit here, Charu Pragya. The border protocol, as was agreed upon under the erstwhile UPA and Congress governments, is that there will be no firearms used along the line of actual control. That is part of the border agreement and protocol, that no firearms will be used. And the Chinese, what they are doing, the PLA, what they are doing is circumventing that by using stubs, clubs, swords, machetes, and spears and all sorts of other weapons, which was skirting that issue. My point is, if they are so devious, then we should be far more devious, and we need to get into areas. Yes, Tushar, yes, please. Yes.
But they are pushed back on, and it's not like the Indian army is taking
anything. Yeah, but my point is, ma'am, they don't understand the language. This Hindi Chini bhai doesn't work. They have stabbed us in the past every time they do this. What we need to tell them is, not only will we push you back, you try and enter from here, we will enter 10 other places and we will not go back. That is what we need to tell them, because that's the only language they understand. Because they have not yet. All they do is rounds and rounds of talks you will do and you will go nowhere. That's what they'll do. They'll keep doing rounds and rounds. This is what they've done over the last 60 years. They're still doing 70 years. Sarkar aaye, sarkar jaye, aapki party ho, dusri party ho. Their identity, their logic is very clear. Have we not understood that? Those people who are advising the government sitting in these China studies think tanks, have they forgotten or are they really worth their salt in trying to understand and figure out what the Chinese should do? A nation like Taiwan is able to stare them at back, and they have not been able to take an inch of Taiwan. And he makes a specific mention of Taiwan in his speech today. But they have been able to slice thousands of kilometers, including Aksai Chin back in the 1950s, as far as from Bharat. So where is our learning? It's a collective question for all of us to understand. Those who have advised governments of the past and currently on China, are they already beholden to the Chinese? Do they even have the gumption to go back and take that position? If it's a collective call, then everybody needs to own up, starting with the Congress party. Yes, Tushar.
Anand, you made some very important point there that the Chinese leadership has been keeping the Indian leadership in loops for a very long time, irrespective of the government. And at the same time, you make another very important point that Taiwan has been able to stare back at the Chinese given all the troubles in the strait. But for whatever reasons, good or bad, the route to the geopolitical might goes through the economic route. And that is where I figure that the government of the day has cracked the code. I'll give an example. In 1990s, we were one of the manufacturing hub for pharmaceuticals across the world. But in the next 20 odd years, we lost that share to China. So when COVID happened, our worry was importing the APIs, the active pharmaceutical ingredients from China, so that we do not have a shortage of medicines. Now, what has the government of the day done? It's going for PLIs, the production-linked incentive schemes. It's getting the companies to come manufacture in India, because until we do not have that economic might, until we cannot stare back at the Chinese economically, as we have done with 5G, as we're doing with manufacturing, as we're doing with other essential commodities, our geopolitical might will always be a big question mark. So while I agree with all the points you make, I also have to give the government of the day a bit of credit where they've understood that the geopolitical might cannot be achieved without the economic might. That is also something we really need to factor in. I'm not taking away any credit.
I'm not taking away any credit where it is due, nor am I going to pull back my punches where it is. My point is not that I am a votary of the BJP or of the Congress party. I have voted for both parties in the past, depending upon what government and what governance they have delivered. I am talking from the interest of Bharat. The interest of Bharat has stood compromised over the last 70 years vis-a-vis China. Fact of the matter is, none of those army chiefs, none of those corps commanders who are there monitoring the line of actual control in the past were ever taught, was it ever made mandatory that they should learn Mandarin? They were not. It's the first time in these rounds of talks that we have had people who understand Mandarin, so that its rounds and rounds are not wasted in translation, and most of it the Chinese don't conveniently forget in translation. They know English very well, they come back, they know Hindi also very well, but they act as if they know nothing. But we have not done that enough. And if it is talking about owning up, as Mr. Rahul Gandhi said, then let's the opposition, which has been in power largely vis-a-vis the strategic mistakes of Bharat, first own up. And then hold to account this government also as to what they've done. Let's do a comparison of what's been done in 60 years and what's been done in 8.5, 9 years. And then we'll see who measures up where as far as the interest of Bharat is concerned vis-a-vis China. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. I have to wind up on that note. Thank you very much.